Tana Mongeau is in big trouble after a story time she recently did on her canceled podcast. I heard this last week and I felt like she was being a little dramatic in the storytelling, but it's also Tana and she's known for her story times. They're always dramatic. And I noticed that some of the comments also kind of felt that way, but I couldn't have imagined that it would have turned into what it has because this is kind of sad. On the episode, she told a story about how she was recently on a wine tour in France. This guy had basically flown out to see Tana, and him and his friend invited her and her friends on a wine tour where they had to wake up early and take the train to start the tour. She was in a really bad mood from the start because she had stayed up drinking really late into the early hours of the morning. She barely slept and had to be ready for this tour early. So it was bad from the beginning for her at her own hand. She says that she also hadn't eaten and it was a big morning. Really bad way to start the whole thing off. And when they met up with their tour guide, she just immediately was not happy about being on this tour. Honestly, Tana was just not feeling it. The tour guide had asked them if they wanted a fun tour or an educational tour, and they had agreed because they were tired and didn't really sleep the night before that they wanted a fun tour. And while they're on the train on the way to the wine cellar, Tana puts in her headphones, but the guide wanted to start the tour from there. And I guess Tana thought because it was going to be a non-educational tour that she wouldn't have any facts to say on this tour. But she did, and it really upset Tana that she was talking about the history of a certain champagne. Tana also decided not to censor or change the guide's name in the story, calling her by her real name, Cynthia, because she was that upset with the situation that she didn't even bother to censor the name. Cynthia has now been receiving Instagram comments about this as a result of all of this and has come forward in an interview with NBC to defend herself in the situation. So that's the only reason why I'm going to be saying her name, because she has now spoken out herself publicly, but it's only as a result of Tana not protecting her identity. And basically in the episode, things only got worse for Tana because she didn't think that this was going to be a walking tour and that there would be some sort of vehicle involved to sort of get them around. So she was pretty pissed off by literally everything that was happening. And the guys they were with who booked it said that they had booked one that had carts and such, but in Tana's story, she said that the guy told them that they had been booked on a different one.
She lets us know that we will be spending the day walking approximately 6 or 7 miles. Rob is asking her, like, what do you mean the tour I took last time is like was on a golf cart on whatever? And she's like, yeah, no, that's not this one. Like, I booked you on a different one. I thought you'd like it more.
Oh, I thought you would like it more, Cynthia. That is not your job.
Paige was wearing heels.
So Tana makes it seem like they were not made aware of what kind of tour this would be or how to prepare, but in an interview with NBC, Cynthia Coutu countered what Tana claimed, and the article said, Mongeau blamed Coutu for not informing their group, but Coutu shared screenshots with NBC News that appeared to show she sent a detailed itinerary ahead of time to Mongeau's friend who paid for the tour. Mongeau's friend signed off on the itinerary, which stated, you should bring a bottle of water and wear comfortable walking shoes, casual clothes, layers. It will be chilly in the cellars. I feel like it was just a situation where Tana felt like they had paid money for this tour, so she should have catered to the fact that they just wanted to drink wine and chill out. But I feel like she was just doing her job by trying to give them a tour. And Tana wasn't the one who even signed up for the tour. She was invited by this guy that she was with and his friend. So maybe they were the ones that needed to prepare her better for the day on what was actually going to be going on and that they needed walking shoes. But she just chose to take her frustration out on Cynthia instead of the guys that brought her along on this, that did not inform her of this email that said, you know, bring comfortable walking shoes and stuff.
She lets us know, first of all, the history of one of these sellers for another 20. This woman, I have never met someone who flaps their gums like this. And I will get into why I think she's a little bit, okay? But she happens to just drop a fact that one of the sellers that we'll be hiking to has like 550 stairs. She keeps turning around to me and being like, are you okay? are you okay?
Eyes on the road, Cynthia.
Are you okay? Yeah. And like laughing to like, are you okay? Like, and it's also freezing cold outside, like weather, wind,
That's
like
good,
light
though.
rain.
That's better than it being hot, right?
I don't know. I don't know at this point.
As Tana's telling the story, you can tell that when she was there, she just basically mentally checked out after she heard that they were going to be walking. And I think she was already just so mad about being awake that any sort of activity was sounding horrible, and she really was taking it out on Cynthia and rudely trying to tune her out. And Tana eventually gets told by Cynthia that she's being disrespectful because she was listening to music during the tour.
So eventually I put in my headphones and I'm listening to Elevated Heartbreak by Jaden Osler. Like, I'm just picking music I want to hear and just trying to enjoy myself. And it's like everyone's also talking to me, like, being like, do you want me to carry you? Do you want me to help you? And it's like, oh my God, everyone just shut up. Like, I just need to like deep breathe. And I'm just having a panic attack. And she turns around and she taps me. I take my headphone out. And she says, can you please take your headphones out?
Nope.
You are being extremely disrespectful. We paid you!
Literally.
We paid you! I dropped out of school because of like you. I don't want to learn about fertilization of grass in the middle of France in a town of a population of 300 at 8:34 a.m. after I've just walked a mile and a half and there's yet to be a glass of wine in my hand.
So eventually Tana says that she wants to leave the tour. She told her friends that she would pay for everything and whatnot, but she just needed to get out of there because she was going to ruin everyone else's time. And this is when I realized that they did not buy like a private tour. There were other people around them during this whole thing. And I can't even imagine how horrible it was for other people to witness what was going on in this group, and maybe how embarrassing it was for Cynthia to have these kinds of people in her group that were acting just, I don't know, entitled to getting like a custom tour.
I'm like, I actually don't even want to do all this walking with her, like, at all. They wanted to do the whole walking tour and then go drink wine after and sample them. So it would have just been like another 4 miles, like so sober. I've never.
Wait, so were there people on this tour who wanted the education of it all?
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Like everyone else there was like 45 or like, you could just agile people who like knew it was this wearing workout.
Oh, so wait, was it not just your group?
No, there were different tour guides. Okay. And you know what sucks too is a lot of them were like fun and young and nice. Like we somehow got stuck with Miss Frizzle in her 80s.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she was probably like, I got stuck with these influencers, and sad that she didn't get a more excited, prepared group that was ready to learn about the wine. And it gets worse when Tana later says that she thinks Cynthia was, well, just watch.
She has us take a sip. She's making us gargle it and swish it around and tell us how it feels in the roof of our mouth and telling us why it feels that way in the roof of our mouth, why, whatever. And then how to pour it out of the, all this. Oh,
do you think she's trolling you? Like,
no.
I feel like if I were Cynthia, I'd be like, ooh, watch this.
I think she had a touch of the,
don't say tism.
And maybe the social cues could not recognize.
And based on the way that she was telling the story, you can just tell that Cynthia had equally had it with Tana. Like she had it with her and just felt completely disrespected, offering to even help them leave after their car service canceled on them that was supposed to be picking them up early from the tour.
Cynthia offers to us that we can take the Vineyards car service. Like they have like a Sprinter, like there's something there that's on the property and that they'll take us back or whatever. And I'm like, thank you so much, Cynthia, for the offer. That's the first thing you've done today that I don't absolutely want to curb stomp you for.
They realize the car won't be able to get them until later, around when their restaurant reservation was. So the group Tana had gone with was like, should we just go to lunch? But the thing is, when Tana wanted to leave earlier, she had told Cynthia to cancel the reservation. So then it became a full-on argument.
And I don't want to do this, but if everyone there wants to do it, I'm like,
yeah.
Okay, fine.
You can have a lunch.
And so I turn to everyone as a courtesy and I say, would you guys want to do that? Like, what, you know what I mean? What do you guys want to do? And she starts screaming at me. You said you wanted to cancel. You said you wanted to cancel. You said you wanted to cancel. And I'm looking at this I do. Like, and it gets like that. Like, it starts getting like very much
choppy.
We're escalating. I'm using my hands. We're going back and forth and we're like yelling. I grab the bottle of wine. I pour it up as fat as I possibly can. I chug it down boots and I just walk away and walk it off.
The car service arrives and Cynthia gets in with them, and Tana just loses it because she doesn't understand why she's getting in with them to go back now that the tour is basically over. And I think it's because she came with them. Like, they had met up with her, then gone on the train, and then started their walking tour. So I think it was just only right that she kind of went back with them, or like she was supposed to go back with them. But it really pissed Tana off. Tana says that she had even gone on a rant on the ride back saying that she doesn't like influencers, and Tana was just so offended. But I mean, I can see why Cynthia doesn't like influencers if this is her experience. Tana then says she followed them into their Airbnb to use their bathroom, and Tana was just beyond over her at this point. And I'm sure she had asked somebody else in the group if she could use the bathroom at their Airbnb. And it wasn't like this was some creepy case where she followed them and, you know, wouldn't leave them alone and came uninvited. I'm sure she asked. But Tana was just making her look all sorts of bad in this story. But obviously Cynthia was not feeling Tana either. Like, she was just so over the fact that she had gotten attitude all day, and she had some final words to send Tana's friend about her.
She sends her final message to Rob 4 days later now. And she says, "They may love her in America, but girls like her are nothing to us here."
Tana goes on to say that she was never outwardly rude to her. Every interaction was started by her being some way towards her. And Brooke says that she was just responding as she should, but did admit that Tana does like to embellish her story sometimes, so she can't really say for sure. And later, Tana goes on to say that she wanted Cynthia dead.
I have so many more things I want to say, but I've been talking for 40 minutes.
Honestly, I loved it. I kind of want Cynthia dead. No offense.
No, I literally absolutely want her dead at the hands of me.
Well, okay. So was that your only negative experience at least?
And obviously Tana is a dramatic storyteller, but this was pretty bad. I mean, certainly not something to say online, especially since people follow Tana and she didn't change the name in her story. Obviously, people who love Tana are then going to go out and find who this woman is that Tana wants dead. And knowing Tana saying negative things about her, like, they're not going to be going to Cynthia's page and saying the nicest things either. And that's what they did. They found her website, they were commenting on her Instagram, and the whole thing caused Tana to actually lose a sponsorship from her podcast because she chose to incorporate the drama into the ad read as she was promoting Babbel, which was one of the sponsors in this episode, where she said, "And with Babbel, I could have told Cynthia, the wine tour lady, to shut the F up in her native language." Like, oh my gosh. NBC published an article stating on Tuesday, Matt Horsberg, Babbel's public relations lead, told NBC News that the company was no longer working with Mojo and would more carefully vet podcast sponsorships in the future. Mojo didn't respond to a request for comment. "This absolutely does not align with Babbel's company values," Horsberg wrote in an email. Highlighted here, Tana is obviously not a person who understands or celebrates the differences in cultures, and we regret to be in any way involved with her. Cynthia ended up saying that after the podcast episode went up, she received strange messages on Instagram and a link to the podcast. And after she listened and heard the death threats, she reported Tana to the police in Paris. Tana's comment section has been definitely more Team Cynthia than on Tana's side, with a lot of them feeling like she just wanted a wine tasting instead of a wine tour, and that she just didn't know what she was getting herself into, and she really blamed Cynthia for the experience that she had, even though she was the one that was unprepared. And although they did pay for the tour, I think that there's still respect that should have been shown to the guide. I mean, you don't hire a tour guide just to say that you don't want them to be a tour guide for the day. It's just kind of ridiculous. But someone ended up commenting on the podcast saying, "How dare a wine tasting lady discuss wine on a tour? Maybe it's Cynthia's fault you stayed up all night knowing you had to be there at 8 a.m. How dare them?" And Tana replied, "No, I think it's more so the rude comments signing us up for a different tour without consent when we paid for a specific tour, her texts after, and also asking us the type of tour we'd like to go on and negating our paid choice completely. whilst being upset that we didn't want to do what she wanted to do, and getting in a car we paid for just to blatantly disrespect us, enter our Airbnb, etc. It was tens of thousands of dollars. Unprofessionalism at its finest. So she clearly doesn't think that she's in the wrong at all here in any way, shape, or form. I just don't think that tours are for Tana. I think that's just the consensus here, that tours are not for Tana. But maybe the brand pulling out of the podcast will change her feelings about this whole thing. I don't know, but I want to know what you guys think about all of this in the comments. I love you guys so much, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye, guys.